And we're back on Live at 5. Andy Stadler joins us to answer some more common tax questions. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And let me start with the dumb question. What's the most likely type of tax deduction that people forget to put down on their tax return and just don't get credit for?
You know, it's really pretty simple. It's the home mortgage interest, the itemized deductions. You know, your property taxes, things that you pay every month, and you just simply don't either know how to write them off or you don't take them. Just had a client in a few days ago that had been paying a mortgage for several years and didn't realize that she could write it off, and it actually increased her refund by over $900.
Yeah, I was going to say, that could be a big deduction right there.
Yes.
With the mortgages. And I know people also want to know, what are some of the deductions that might lead to an audit that you might want to maybe not mess with if it's not completely legit?
Yeah, exactly. Usually the biggest one, it seems to be the highest flag, is when you're taking your home office deduction. That usually doesn't give you very much more of a refund, but boy, it's a high audit item.
Okay. And sometimes people will get a notice in the mail or some sort of piece of mail that says the IRS is going to audit you. What should people be aware of, and what should they do when that happens?
Well, first of all, don't panic.
Okay.
That's the biggest thing. IRS, when they send letters out, they'll send letters out all the time about, we want to audit you, or we find discrepancy in the records between what we have on file and what you're showing. But most of them letters, if it's a discrepancy letter, about 40% of them really are not correct. The IRS doesn't have the information correct. The biggest thing to do is when you get the letter, one, make sure you get a licensed tax professional to help you through it. Number two, it's very important to respond. If you don't respond, then the IRS sees you as being guilty, or being, where they're trying to allege you have income you didn't report, or whatever it might be. So it's very important to read through it and get you a tax professional, a licensed tax professional that knows how to respond to the IRS on your behalf. And
you had a good example that you gave us here about audits. People can't use the excuse of, well, I did my did my return online with some software, it must be their fault. That doesn't get you out of an audit or out of trouble, right?
It does not. Our own U.S. Department of Treasury head, Mr. Geithner, when he first took that office, he had that exact problem. He tried to blame it on a software that he had bought, and it doesn't carry any weight because you are ultimately responsible. It's not the software.
So if the Secretary of the Treasury is getting in trouble for that, of course, you probably will too. So be careful with that. You can't use your software as an excuse. But even if you do get something in the mail from the IRS, it's not necessarily an audit, like you said.
It's not necessarily an audit. They do send letters out saying that your W-2s or 1099s or some other information they may have is not matching up with what they're showing on file. And it's generally more of a proposal. We're proposing additional income or additional tax. Be sure to review those.
Okay. And people sometimes worry about how to get their refunds. Is a check the best way? Is it better to give the IRS your bank account routing number so you can get a direct deposit? What do you recommend?
Well, the safest way is direct deposit. As far as giving the IRS the information, I'm sure they've already got it because they communicate with banks and everything all the time. So you're not giving something they already don't have. But the absolute safest way, and quickest as well, is a direct deposit. Having the checks come through the mail to you. There can be somebody stealing them out of your mailbox. It could be just delayed coming through the mail to you. So direct deposit is a lot better. But you do want to make sure, it's very important, make sure you get the right routing number and the correct account number so that it gets sent to the right place.
Yeah, you don't want to donate your return to somebody else. But what about when you do get that refund? If you do go through the standardized mail and get your check that way, if it does happen to get stolen or never show up, what's the recourse for that? If someone did steal it, I mean, do you get your money eventually?
Eventually you can. There's a claim, a form number you have to fill out the IRS, and it's basically a lost or stolen check. They will go through and check to make sure that it hasn't been cashed or deposited somewhere, and you'll eventually get a check, but it'll be several months.
Okay, good to know. Some people are wondering about, with this economy the way it is, they've been getting unemployment benefits. Is that taxable, and how does that work as far as filling it out on your return?
Yes, it is. Unemployment benefits are taxable. For the first time, though, in several years, the federal government is giving you the first $2,400 that you've earned, the first $2,400 is tax-free. Anything over that $2,400 then becomes taxable. Now, it's a different story with the states. State of Indiana and Illinois, they tax you on the entire amount. However, here in Indiana, if your total income is generally under $20,000, that unemployment may not be taxable. So you want to go through the calculations. There's a special state worksheet you go through to see if it is taxable or not, or maybe even a portion of it may not be taxed, but it is definitely taxable, and you want to go through those calculations.
Okay, and so that's for unemployment benefits. What about someone who's getting workers' compensation?
Workers' compensation is typically where you've been hurt on the job and they're paying you a salary as if you're there. That normally is not taxable. Just like child support is not taxable, welfare benefits are not taxable, food stamps or anything to that effect, but workman's comp is not taxable.
Okay, and if you have any more questions for Andy, you can call his Terre Haute office. The number is 478-2800, or the toll-free number is 800-447-2015. Stadler Tax Service has 4 locations, and for more on their services, go to mywabashvalley.com and click on the Valley Expert page. Andy, we'll look for you again next Tuesday.
Pat, thank you.
Good to see you. Now here.